All right, guys, we're back here on Southeastern 16. Max Barr joins, as always. We're presented by FanDuel, our new title sponsor here at Southeastern 16. We'll get into some interesting numbers here in a bit. But, Max, back talking SEC basketball. Big football week. Big football week
Was
here at the channel. Few people watching those prediction videos for Tennessee, Georgia, Arkansas, Ole Miss, South Carolina, Vanderbilt. Maybe not as many for LSU and Florida for obvious reasons. But, yeah, big week of SEC football, but man, it's a big week of SEC basketball because we are less than 2 months away now from the start of the 25-26 season, and it's going to be incredible, and we got some incredible stuff coming up for you today because Max and I, being the absolute maniacs that we are, we decided to pick every single game in SEC basketball and conference play via our friend Sam Snelling, who sends out a pick'em form every single preseason, and Max and I just simply go through and make our picks for every game. It's a gut bracket type feel. You pick every winner, and then Sam sends you the results of what the final records were and all of that. So we'll get into that. We've also got some news to get into, interesting news. And then if you're a Missouri fan, you are the chosen one this week. Missouri, Kansas is our way too early non-conference game preview.
it was a huge weekend, Blake, and I don't know about you. I don't know about everyone in the chat who's hopping in. Morning, everybody. The case of the Mondays this week, after that first weekend of all day Saturday, all day Sunday sports. Oh my gosh, Monday was tough this week. Monday was tough. Guess what? It's not Monday, okay? It's Wednesday, and we're talking hoops. So snap out of it, everybody. Weekend is almost here. It's basically, you know what? In sports season, Blake, Wednesday is basically Friday, because then Thursday you get sports on Thursday night. Friday's Friday. The weekend is already rolling. I'm feeling fantastic today, Blake. It's a big day here at Southeastern 16.
It is, and we've also got some interviews coming up. If you guys are on Twitter/X, you've seen me teasing that. 3 interviews as of right now that we can go ahead and tell you are officially set. Today, we're going to talk to Ole Miss head coach Chris Beard. We're going to talk to Tennessee associate head coach Justin Gainey. And we're going to talk to Mississippi State head coach Chris Jantz coming up soon. So, and more are in the works that you don't even know about. So, it's going to be a lot of fun. And, yeah, we did start a little early today, Alan. Just for you. Just for you, Alan. That's what we do here for the people. We see all the regulars popping in. Max can throw that up on the screen here with you guys jumping in. But, Max, you want to change this up a little bit? You want to just quickly dive into some news items before we get into the main exciting topic of the day? Because I think there are some noteworthy news things that we can discuss. Why don't we start?
There's plenty we could discuss.
Why don't we start with a certain JQ in Lexington, Kentucky that everyone has been talking about for the past 24 hours or so. I don't know who was the first person who put out the update. Was it Rothstein? Or was it someone else?
So.
I think
that's
it was,
where I
think it was
saw it.
our guy, John Rothstein, who put out the update that Jayden Quaintance had not been cleared yet for non-contact work, correct? And so I think we might want to pull that up. But I'm pretty sure that's accurate. We don't want to attribute anything to John that's not true. But yes, I think that is kind of where things stand. And then you saw some other videos put out. It may have been Jack Pilgrim that put it up of just, hey, JQ may not be cleared for the non-contact yet, but this guy is an animal in terms of you can kind of see the training and all that stuff going on. The man has put on some pure rock lock muscle. Max, I don't know if you've seen some of the updated numbers there, but
it's
here you
the
go.
formatting might be a little weird here as I'm
okay.
sharing my screen, but it was this video from Jack Pilgrim KSR.
Oh, yeah.
Don't you guys worry.
Come on.
It's like there's one specific one in here where he's doing a it's like a split squat or some sort of he's doing like a squat with just that one leg, and I'm like, man, right here.
Oh my.
Yeah.
That looks like Max Barr at the gym right there.
I mean, that's tough to do. That's a lot of balance.
Look at those weight plates. Those are incredible. Come on.
Yeah.
Little customized weight plates. I love it.
So,
I mean, you and I were texting about this. Like, I don't think this is a a shocking development by any means. I think you talked to the guys that filled the 68. Wasn't that back in April, May, something like that?
Yes, April.
Yeah, and mentioned, September was kind of the goal. That was the target to be back in action. Clearly not there yet, but I don't know that you and I have, and we've said this many times, I feel like, with the caveat of, hey, I know the chat, we can get a little excited. He's going to be ready to go by game one. He's going to be at 100%. But I think you and I have been a little more just let's wait and see, right? Because it's a significant injury. And we know we've seen other players, and it can take a little time to get back to full strength from something like that. And so I don't know, Max, and you can tell me your thoughts, but like my kind of thinking has been January, has been like all right, that may be when we get the beast himself, as Alan says, the rock lock jock. I like that. We call him that.
That's good.
But I think that's kind of what I'm thinking. Like, I can't imagine that if you're Mark Pope in Kentucky, once he does officially get cleared, he's going, but I don't feel like you're going to just say, all right, here he comes, 37 minutes a game, right off the bat. It's going to be a process, and I feel like we've kind of expected that from the start.
Yeah, that's always been my expectation, and that's kind of why I was just a little bit lower on them, like in the Louisville preview. I'm like, I don't think JQ is going to be ready to rock for this one, and this is a huge road game. Like, I think early, I don't think he's going to be too much of a factor, but after this news came out, Blake, I was like, you know what? Let me go and look at the Micah Henlockton timeline and see if there's anything to compare with that with a big time front court piece. Obviously, JQ has, JQ is the better prospect by a long shot there. However, just, you bring in that front court, strength mid-February. I think JQ will be in the lineup January, but it might be like my take now is that kind of, okay, beginning of conference play, he might be kind of how Henlockton was, like 10, 15-ish minutes a game. And then I'm expecting February, we're ready to rock and roll. But I think the original expectation of like September, he's game one, starting lineup game one, I was never that bullish.
So February 23rd, right, I think was the injury date. I mean, you're talking just a full-blown torn ACL, right? And so, wait, was it February 23rd, or am I getting the dates wrong? Yeah, I think it's February 23rd. Somewhere in February, right? It wasn't in March.
It was late.
Yeah, so I think that's not that long ago, realistically, right? I mean, that's less than, 7 months? Something like that. So, like, yeah, surgery, Robert, that's what we were looking for, too, was the date on the surgery. The surgery was March 19th. Yep. So, again, like, it's not that long ago, folks. And so I don't think the expectation should just be that. I mean, he is just going to be 100% ready to go. And even if he is, remember, I don't think it's necessarily the percent that he's at versus the percent that probably Kentucky wants to use him that quickly. I mean, we've seen this, right? You brought up the Henlockton, and yeah, I mean, there have been other injuries in the past. Sean's bringing up, yeah, I mean, another, and I just think, yeah, like it's a situational type thing. Every injury is different, even if you have the same, even if you have a torn ACL, right? Everybody's process is a little bit different in terms of, the comeback and all that. So
I saw some people comparing the timeline to Zakai Ziegler's timeline because it's very similar. Mm-hmm. But the problem there is JQ is like two Zakai Zieglers stacked on top of each other.
That's different.
It's a much different recovery for a big time knee injury from the size of Zakai Ziegler to the size of JQ. So that, don't be careful with the comparison game there.
Yeah. So I don't think, and I know there's been different reactions to it, but like if you're a Kentucky fan, I don't think you should be panicking by any means. I think you should just look at this as, hey, part of the process. It's still September.
Yep.
We've still got 2 months before the start of the season. And even if it's not that initial date that was bantered about, I mean, think about that, right? Like he's saying September a month after surgery. So it's like, when he had that interview, I guess, with Phil the 68. So I think it's like, you just gotta, you gotta look at that as nothing more than, hey, that's my aim. That's my goal. But it wasn't a hard sort of date, I think, necessarily, just from what I read into it. So,
Yeah. Had some
um,
commitments.
had some commitments. By the way, your Missouri Tigers are
Ooh.
now the number. I'm gonna make sure I won't say anything out of turn here, but I'm pretty sure they're number 2. They were as the last time I looked, which was about 24 hours or so ago. Got to make sure no one else is snuck in there. But yes, so if I look out, I'm wrong, Max.
Someone snuck in.
Georgia Tech is snuck in there. So 24/7 Sports currently has Florida State at 1, Georgia Tech at 2, Missouri at 3. And there's another team they have at 4, who we'll talk about in a second, from the SEC. For 2026, it was Florida State 1, Missouri at 2, right after the Bryant commitment. But now Georgia Tech is snuck in there. And I'll be honest, I've not really paid attention to Georgia Tech in the past 24 hours. So I'm going to assume they got a big pickup.
Yeah, Mizzou now, if you are, Blake, it's never too early to look ahead and keep looking ahead and always looking ahead. You can tinker around with the next year's rosters already. We're not even at this year. We can already start looking ahead to next year. All I'm going to say, because I don't like to dive too much into the freshman stuff, the high school stuff, but all I'm going to say, Blake, is you pair that recruiting class up with a returning Ant Robinson, a senior Ant Robinson, in a league where senior guards are not going to be there's not going to be many of them left next year. Missouri's going to be in a great spot.
Yeah, I mean, Tony Bryant was the big pickup. The more recent ones, you've got 2 5-stars added to the mix. 6'9", 215, power forward.
Beast.
Just an absolute stud. And yeah, I mean, I just think when you think about the combination of guys now, having those two is just, it's a significant step.
Yes.
And I know, like, again, we talked about kind of the trajectory of the Dennis Gates era there at Missouri. Great start. Obviously, the follow-up was not what anyone expected the next season. We mentioned various reasons why that was, but, I mean, they have gone out, and since that point, like, you want to talk about just, hey, we know what we got to do to compete in the SEC and be able to have a little bit more of that wiggle room when you have injuries and those kind of things, like the depth. We mentioned that, and like they have just, I mean, think about the guys they brought in since that point. And, whether it's Mark Mitchell and the impact he's had, and obviously, they got one of their injured players back from then in Caleb Grill, and we saw what he was able to do. And now when you look ahead and see them with a top 3 class in the country for next season already, multiple 5-stars in the bag, yeah, I mean, I just think if you're Missouri fans, you've got to just feel pretty great about the level of talent that you're going to have on your roster the next couple of seasons.
When we were we'll get to it, Missouri. We'll get to the game, the Kansas-Missouri game. But when I was doing it, I was looking at the analytics from past years and how 2 years ago, the injury-ridden season, the sub-100s up to the 19th finish last year on KenPom. All I'm going to say is get used to being top 20, top 25. With that talent coming in, that's going to be the norm from here moving forward.
Yep. I just think they're doing a great job, clearly, in terms of being able to build this kind of roster. And then, of course, so Missouri picks up a big one, top 3. Well,
yep.
Don't care about nothing but the Tide, because the Tide are now at number 4, Max.
Yeah, the Tide, and that might climb, that might jump even higher with one of my favorite guys watching the U19s this summer, Caleb Holt visiting Alabama as well. If Nate Oates is your basketball coach, you're a happy camper in today's era. That's all I'll say. He's making a killing out there.
Yeah, so, I mean, Alabama sitting in a really good spot now. As you said, I think more to come for the Tide. And again, this is just, I think, you kind of understand, as we said, what you're going against in the SEC right now. And just, I mean, being able to, it's like funny, isn't it? How 5 years ago, all we're talking about is recruiting rankings probably. But like now, recruiting rankings just feel like they don't get talked about very much because we're just focused on the transfers. And We're more looking at transfer rankings than we are recruiting rankings, the way it used to be for decades and decades. And it's kind of the opposite now, where we turn all our focus, but you can't forget, again, how impactful some of these guys are going to be. And yeah, as we said right now, 247 Sports, Florida State's 1, Georgia Tech 2, Missouri 3, Alabama 4, Purdue 5. That's your top 5 in terms of your 2026 early recruiting rankings. Again, those will change considerably. But yeah, I think it's going to be pretty fascinating to see who else joins the mix for those
Dylan
teams
Mingo
and others.
is also visiting. I forgot him. Number 1 point guard. That was the other big one. So it could be, we could be having this conversation next week, Blake, and that 4 is a 1 next to the recruiting rankings for Alabama.
Yeah, and like when you look down the rankings further, like again, there's not many commitments, period. But like Mississippi State is at 26, LSU 38, and again, they're just not numbers wise around the country. There's just not a lot of guys that have joined the mix yet. So you will take that for sure. So there you go. But all right. Some news items there. We're about to get to the good stuff. Before
It's been a while since we had a bunch of news items, Blake. That was nice.
I'll tell you, I know, a little news. That means we're getting close here, but
we're getting closer.
Let's jump into the chat real quick before we tell you about some of our friends here at the channel. How about Sean saying that Tommy H. going to be the pick for SEC Player of the Year after watching the open practice? Our guy, Sir Thomas Houck, Player of the Year for Sean right now. So
I like it, Sean. I don't like it. I love it.
Sean, we would never overreact. If Max and I would have been in that open practice, we would literally be probably working the NIL for Tommy H right now. Like we would have probably quit Southeastern 16. We'd be Tommy H Enterprise. Like we would be the brand, the fan club.
Sign me up for that.
Old Tommy H for us. But shout out to Alan. Got to head to work. He's gonna watch the rest later. Yeah, tune in, Alan. We're gonna do the results of Max and I picking every SEC basketball game this season, and what a stressful exercise that was. Phil said, I done got the YouTube Premium. I'm going to go 3 times to catch up to the live. We appreciate that, Phil.
There you go.
By the way, I know sometimes people are like, man, these ads, hey, there's nothing we can do about it. But if you get YouTube Premium, you don't have to worry about it, I think, on that. But you do got to worry about ads right now. But they're good ads, because we got to tell you about our friends who support the channel just like you guys do. Remember, you can support the channel too. A little super chat action, a little membership. It really helps out here at Southeastern 16. But let's tell you about our friends quickly who support it. Then we'll get into the picks that we had for every conference game in the SEC. Game Time Sidekicks. There they are. Look at that. Every school represented here. An incredible piece of you-know-what right there on the screen, as it's officially licensed stainless steel drinkware. All SEC schools, over 350 more universities, stainless steel sippy cups, tumblers, 40-ounce bottles, shaker cups. They got it all. SE16. SE16 for 20% discount to our viewers at GameTimeSidekicks.com. And maybe Max, unlike me, will remember to put the logo up on the screen, because I am absolutely terrible at remembering to do that. So Game Time Sidekicks, there it is, right there on the screen. Also on the screen shortly, as soon as I say the word, ROKFORM, ROKFORM.com, the world's strongest magnetic phone case, extreme protection, super strong magnets, the Rock Lock, which has already become a common theme here in the chat. The Rock Lock secure mounting, September, their busiest month of the year, the new iPhones coming out, all that stuff. Check it out over at ROKFORM.com, SEC25, SEC25 for 25% off. We got all these codes, by the way, in the description, so you don't forget. And then our new friends at Hovey Dry Goods. Folks, they've been sending hats left and right. Now, you people are going to think I'm playing favorites here, but just remember, I'm not. This is what they're sending me, okay? Auburn fans, boom. Ooh. There's a nice little hat from our friends at Hovey Dry Goods. Your new favorite hat, by the way. Guess what else they sent me? Where's our guy, Hurt Life Rick? Look at this. A little like Bayou Bengals. A little yellow.
I like that one.
That's a pretty cool one, I thought myself. So, all right. They're going to keep sending them, though. And, again, they got a lot of teams over there. Bad beat team of the week is Ole Miss after that bad beat in the football game against Kentucky. So if you want 15% off this week, Rebs, R-E-B-S, for 15% off at Hovey Dry Goods. All right.
All right.
Holly wants a Sanders read. How about I'll give that to you at the end, okay? We'll get to Sanders at the end. It has been a while, hasn't it? Uh-oh, look who's here. Dark Ryan Day's here.
There he is.
So,
yep.
There he is. WPS, he says. All right. Are we ready to, to give you the rundown?
This was
Of what
brutal.
this was brutal this year. Okay, so I mentioned it earlier. Our friend Sam Snelling over at Rock M Nation does great work for the Missouri Tigers. He sends out a Google form every year, and it is the entire SEC conference schedule, where it is a pick'em, where you go through and just blindly pick every single game for the conference season. It's just like the gut bracket, honestly, Max, isn't it? Like, it's the same thing. You're just picking every game. You're not really putting much analysis into it. You're just going through picking because you want to see, hey, these are the wild results that it spits out. And boy, did we get some wild results.
Not only is it like the gut bracket because you're kind of just going, but there's like a fatigue element to it. I mean, you picked like 100 games and you're in.
Oh, it's a ton.
You just started February. You're like, oh my gosh.
Well,
like you don't have the bandwidth to analyze them all.
And remember, like it's not updating your results as you're doing it. You're not getting the results until the end. So what you have to do along the way is you have to be like, okay, have I picked this team to actually win a game yet? Have I picked this team to pull off an upset? Have I picked this team to lose in what is a back-to-back coming off of this? And so it just really starts to throw you for a loop. Let's get into it. Okay, so here's what we're going to do, okay? We are complete cowards, and we are not going to show you the entire 1 through 16 standings, okay? Because we don't like some of them.
I hate them, but I will if the people want to see
I don't think you should. I'm just being honest with you. I don't think you should. People are going to completely overreact. So remember, this is not Max and I breaking down the games like we do throughout the season. So that's why I am not showing you my 1 through 16. I refuse because I don't like some of them. But here's what we're going to do. I will tell you this, and let's start with the good stuff. I am going to show you my top 3, okay?
Okay.
And I think this is fitting for me to show you my top 3 because this is going to be incredible. And by the way, Big Gator EJ says it's 288 games, needs a 5-minute reaction to each one. Yeah. It's funny because we thought about doing this live, and I said, Max, we will be here for 2 hours. There's no chance. We will get caught up in a random, like, Georgia at LSU January 28th game, and it'll take us forever. So we didn't do it that way. And yes, Holly, we are complete chickens. All right, are you ready for my top 3?
Okay.
Let's see how this looks on the screen. Everybody get ready to overreact in 3, 2, 1. You shouldn't be overreacting at all. This wound up being without any... I wasn't aiming for this. I wasn't trying to make it this way, but I thought this was fitting, Max. That when I did this, my top 3, Florida, Kentucky, and Arkansas, all at 14-4. Every single one of those teams finished at 14-4, and I did this completely on the fly, did not stop all the way through, and they all finished at 14-4.
And then you're supposed to turn around and power rank those teams and separate them as if your life depends on it.
That was going to be my response here, is this makes me a coward even more because this works out perfectly because I don't have to piss anybody off necessarily here, although some people would say, well, come on, this team should have more wins than that. But I thought it was kind of funny that these were the top 3, and I had them all at 14-4, and that's where scheduling comes into this. Remember, we did the stream. We talked to Garth Glissman, the SEC Associate Commissioner, all that. We were breaking down the schedule. Max and I talked about what we thought were the toughest schedules in the SEC on paper and all that stuff. And this is where, when you do this exercise, that really comes into play because you're like, okay, this team's got a really tough, got tough home and away with this team or that team. But then you can find some others where you're like, well, they don't really have that many, tough home and aways. It's more of, the schedule lines up a little bit better, and you see some teams getting more wins. And we'll talk about that in a second. There were a couple teams I was like, a little surprised they got that many wins. But I think, it's kind of interesting, I think, to do this.
And the one thing that I would have liked to be able to do is kind of see, be able to see, okay, it's Kentucky, Arkansas on a Saturday, who am I picking to
Mhm.
win this game? Because then I'll want them to probably lose the letdown on that Tuesday, 3
Right.
days
Yeah.
later. Like, you just don't have the time to look at those things when you're picking 300 games. But what I think this does show is that there might not be that separation we think that there is between Florida and then that group that if you want to throw Arkansas, Alabama, Kentucky, Tennessee, any of those kind of top analytical preseason teams. When you look at the schedule, Florida still got a good amount of tough road games, and it's hard to pick them to go 17-1 or, like I did, 16-2. I don't know
Mhm.
how I only gave them 2 losses, but I did. But like, I think what this exercise shows, Blake, is like maybe that number one in the SEC isn't as clear cut as we think it is.
Yeah, and I'm trying to pull up because I probably should have prepared better on this, but I know we already have the opponents, right? We had that full list of like the
Yeah.
SEC, and it was way easier to break down than it was to go through. Um, what was it to go through the actual like game by game, date by date one? So I'm trying to figure out. I know we have that somewhere, but I'll see if I can find it while you're talking in a minute. But yeah, like they've released the opponents, and that's where I think if you break down these top 3 teams, at least what it came out to be. Okay, I've got it here. So Arkansas, home and aways against Auburn, LSU, and Missouri. And we mentioned Arkansas's home games. They get Kentucky, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Vanderbilt. Road games at Alabama, at Florida, Georgia, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Oklahoma, in addition to Auburn and Missouri, as 2 of those probably are going to be ranked a little bit higher. So, you can find your path to 4 losses for Arkansas just based on the strength of the schedule, right? Florida, home and aways, Georgia, Kentucky, South Carolina. Obviously, the 2 Kentucky games, that's pretty significant. And then we mentioned home games for Florida, Alabama, Arkansas, Auburn, Tennessee, LSU, Mississippi State. Then you've got road games at Ole Miss, Missouri, Oklahoma, Texas, A&M, and then again Vanderbilt, Kentucky. So even though Florida's the defending champs, could easily win more games, you can find a path to 4 losses for Florida. And then Kentucky. I mean, their 3 home and away teams are all going to be pretty good in our eyes: Florida, Tennessee, Vanderbilt. And so, and then we talked about Kentucky's road schedule, right? At Alabama, at Arkansas, at Auburn. Like, yeah, so like, it's not that hard to find 4 losses for Kentucky when it comes to just the strength of the schedule. No matter how good these teams are, we know when you're traveling on the road in the SEC, you're going to lose some games probably somewhere along the way. And so I just think, yeah, it was kind of interesting to see these 3 at the top, at least in my rankings to start.
And that is assuming like perfect at home and winning all the home games you
Right.
should win. Sometimes there's a weird home game when you shoot, it's halftime and you're 1 of 8 from 3 and the other team is 7 of 11. And it's like, well, how is this happening? Those games always pop up here and there. But like, what I'm curious is, so you're able to see when you do this, like the big gaps you have. I have 3 teams tied at 13-5 for me. I had Florida 1, Arkansas 2, and then 3, 4, and 5 for me was all tied. Cats, Tide, and Vols, all 13-5 for me. And then there's a bit of a drop off. So I had kind of a top 5 grouping, and then there's a drop off into like this middle pack. But curious to hear where you have Alabama and Tennessee.
Alabama and Tennessee are not far behind at all. Like, and I want to bring up a reference here too. Remember, last year, if you're looking from a record standpoint, and like we said, if you're tuning in late, remember, these are not rankings. These are literally blind picks for us. They will not factor into our rankings whatsoever, probably, when we do those. But it was a fun thing to do. Auburn went 15-3 last year. Florida, who won the national championship, went 14-4 in the SEC last year. So just keep that in mind. I think it's the strength of the league. Alabama went 13-5. Tennessee went 12-6. Like, these are all teams that were getting close to a Final Four, right?
Yeah.
Or making the Final Four, or winning the national championship. Like, they lost several games in the SEC. So I think that's something to consider. And for me, yeah, like, pretty much when I look at my numbers here, like, right behind them, you have that group of it's just like we probably have been saying all offseason about it's that group of Tennessee, Alabama, Auburn for me. And it's fitting because that is kind of how I have them in these pick'em rankings, or not rankings. I keep saying rankings. I need to just abolish that word. It's not going to happen, okay, Max? I can't use the word rankings anymore because that's not going to work. So that's how it turned out for me, though. It was those 6 as the top 6, and you just had a little bit of a different number beside them. But they all had, I have all of them with 11 or more wins.
Okay.
And you want to know who else I have with 11 or more wins? Ask
Sleeper?
me your question, and then I'll tell you who else I have as 11 or more wins.
Well, I was gonna say talk about Auburn just for a second because they're an interesting conversation. But
no, Auburn's good. Let's go to Auburn, and then I'll go a little bit further with mine.
The reason I ask is because I like Auburn this year. I think they're definitely going to take a little bit of a step back. Last year's team was special, but they turned out 9-9 for me, and I was like, I feel like they're gonna be better than that. I would like them more at like 11-7, maybe a 10-8 floor. But when the results are the results after blind picking them, and Auburn turned out 8th, 9-9 for me, and it didn't feel right. I felt like a Tahad Pettiford-led Bruce Pearl squad with some really talented transfers. I don't like 9-9. And I might have misheard it, but did you say you had them with 11?
I have them at 11. Yeah. So that's what it wound up being
way more
for me. Yeah. And I'm trying to think, like I'm looking at Auburn's overall opponents right now. Home and aways with Alabama, Arkansas, Ole Miss. My guess is I probably picked them to lose at Alabama and Arkansas. I don't remember. I don't have the results in front of me. They also have road games. Yeah, and I mean, I could have picked them to lose at Ole Miss too. I don't remember. But in addition to that, they go on the road to Florida, Tennessee, Missouri, Mississippi State, Oklahoma, Georgia. And then plus they have home games, which in all honesty, I probably picked Auburn to win every home game. I probably did. Just by default, I'm like, they're playing in the jungle. I'm probably going to pick them to win every game. I don't remember, but I probably did. Kentucky, LSU, South Carolina, Texas A&M, Vanderbilt. I probably picked them to win all those games. Not going to lie to you. But I think it's some of those road games that those numbers could add up just based on the challenges of having to go on the road and play some of those teams. So, and remember, this is all situational too. Like we're doing this in September, which is why we say it's absurd, but it's also just fun at the same time because you don't know who's going to have injuries. You don't know how non-conference is going to go for some of these teams where, all right, you give us 5 games of non-conference data, I'm going to go back and switch this. No, that's not what it's meant to be. So, yeah, I think I had Auburn. Yeah, I have them with 11 wins. The other team that got to 11, some people are going to say, here comes the bias coming in. The other Tigers. Sorry, Hurt Life Rick. I'm talking about Missouri. So I got Missouri to 11 in the pick'em. So I'll be honest.
Okay.
I didn't think that was going to happen. Now again, it may just be a little Blake Lovell, Dennis Gates bias coming into action here, but I was not sure that I would get Missouri to that number, but I did.
If I had to, I'm trying to figure out the right way to phrase this question, and it's not going to come out right, but I'm trying to see how much Missouri has grown on you since the season ended. Like if you had to give like a 1 out of 10 feeling for how you feel about Missouri right now and how you felt like early April, how much better do you feel right now? Because for me personally, right away, I was like, man, they're losing so much shooting, so much offense with Bates and Grill, and these guys are so dynamic offensively. I'm really worried. And the more the offseason goes on, I'm like, I see it. I can see how this team's going to be really good.
What they have is they have Mark Mitchell. And like, I just feel like it's one of those where like, if you have a dude like that and you can kind of build around him, which I think they've done pretty well. I mean, Ant Robinson, Mark Mitchell, I told you, I don't remember one of the things we had. There was a question or some kind of theme, and I was like, T.O. Barrett's my guy there. Like potential most improved, not even most improved. I don't remember what the category was, but yeah, like I could see it. But I don't know. Like I'm looking at their opponents too, home and aways with Arkansas, Mississippi State, Oklahoma. But I think one of the things we talked about with them was they get Auburn at home, Florida at home, Tennessee at home, Texas at home, Vanderbilt at home. They play a lot of their tough games at home, and obviously have to go to Alabama, Kentucky, and so forth. But I think that was one of the strengths probably for me when I was going through picking these games is I saw a lot of opportunity at home and when in doubt, pick the home team. It's kind of my strategy in doing, a
Yep.
game like this. And so that's probably how Missouri got to 11 in the number here on mine. So,
Because when you start really over analyzing these teams, which it's September, there's nothing to do left but over analyze.
of course.
You start drawing questions, well, is this going to translate? I don't know about this player. What if they don't have rim protection? With Missouri, for me, it's just I trust this stuff. Like, I don't know where that ceiling is going to be, like how good this team can be potentially, but I know what I'm getting from Ant Robinson. I know what I'm getting from Mark Mitchell. I know what we're getting from the Trent Pierce, Javon Porter kind of stretch 6'10", 6'11" big that has been at Missouri the past few years. We've seen several years of Sebi Mack at UCLA. Like, I don't have too many questions other than maybe is Jacob Cruz going to be the next Caleb Grill and be that flamethrower 5 threes in the first half type of guy? But like, there's questions on a lot of other rosters. With Missouri, there's a lot that we can trust, I feel like.
Well, two things with Missouri before we move on. They need several guys to take a step forward, clearly. I think to reach this height of maybe getting that double-digit or higher wins. If you want to say they have the same ceiling as last year. Right now, I don't know. I don't know if I can say that just yet. But I think it's the same reason last year we were trying to figure them out for a while. It's because in non-conference play, they are going to play a lot of guys, and you're going to know exactly where they stand by the time they get to, December-ish, mid-December maybe, early, like you'll know where things stand. And I think just knowing that, I'm okay taking the wait and see approach on Missouri because I feel like that's worked out pretty well at times, just based on, I think we'll have a pretty clear idea of what this rotation will look like after a month of play. But it's always tough because you have the numbers are there. It's just like we said, I feel like Missouri, it's been easy to be wrong about like the minutes distribution with Missouri more so than some other teams, just because that's just how it works, right? I mean, they're gonna play guys. Like Dennis Gates has proven that. He's gonna give these guys an opportunity to see how they fit into the mix, and some of these guys that maybe we barely talked about,
So
may
speaking of barely talking about, there's been a few teams that we're pretty high on that we haven't mentioned yet. One by the name of Vanderbilt. We haven't mentioned the new Sean Miller crew with the Longhorns. We haven't mentioned Buckyball. We haven't mentioned the Sooners, Ole Miss. I mean, there's a lot of good teams here now that we're down to some lower rankings.
All right.
But I like these teams.
I have got a complete jumbled mess with those 4 teams. Ole Miss, Vanderbilt, A&M, and Texas. It's a jumbled mess for me when I did this pick'em. And so there's really and I laughed about this with you. I'm not going to tell you the gap here with who I have necessarily next, but I have the number 11 team in my pick'em is 9-9. The number 12 team in my pick'em is 5-13. There is a 4-win difference between the number 11 and number 12 in this pick'em that I did. So I would probably change that quite a bit because I don't know that there's that big of a gap between, let's say, the number 11 team and the bottom 5 teams in this list. But that was probably the wildest thing to me, was to see that gap between 11 and 12. Somehow I did it, but I do have a jumbled mess with those 4 teams you mentioned a second ago.
I have to little asterisk before we say what these, like, I have Missouri at 8-10. I had Texas 8-10. I had a lot of 8-10. Texas A&M was 8-10. But I'll also say this: guess who was 8-10 last year in the SEC? Arkansas, Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, Georgia, all tournament teams. Guess who was 6-12 last year in the SEC? Oklahoma and Texas at 6-12 tournament teams. So that's where it's like, it's so tough when you do these game by game schedule predictions, because you're like, geez, I'm predicting Ole Miss to be a 7-11 team, but I think they're going to be like an 8 seed, a 9 seed.
Yeah.
That's where it's like it's tough, because my power rankings are much different than these results, which I can't wait for. Now I want to give power rankings. I want to do these power rankings, Blake. Give the
I think
people.
we will do our power rankings. I feel like we usually aim for like the first week of October, just to really give everybody a
Ooh.
nice little jolt of chaos. But yeah, I think that's probably the expectation there is that we'll probably shoot for October on that. So,
I
yeah, I
will
mean,
say, I will
who
say,
are you going to
I
get into
got a
where I think you're
team
going
to
to go?
6 wins. I got a team to 6 wins, and 6 wins was tournament last year for the SEC.
Sure,
Can you? I'll give you a guess at who they're 13th in my rankings, or not rankings, results, whatever.
we're going to always say
Six and
rankings.
12, 6 and 12, sneaks in the tournament. The LSU Tigers.
Oh, where's Hurt Life Rick? He's going to hear that on the replay if he's not in here. He's going to hear it on the replay. The Tigers.
6 and 12. I got him to it.
All right.
Go
Let's talk
dancing.
about the teams that we and we don't have to mention the record, but let's talk about the teams that I looked up after I sent this and was like, this is the one where I'm like, what happened here? The team for me that I had at a shockingly low number was Oklahoma. And I'm not even going to tell you the number because people are going to be like, all right, just throw out the entire thing. But I don't know how it happened, but they were the one team. And I feel like every year that's how it works is that
Yep.
there's always one that I'm like, wait a second. I thought I picked them to win a lot more games than that.
Yep.
But they were the one that I looked up and said, oh my goodness, how did I only get them to X number of wins? And I'm looking at their opponents. Missouri, Texas, and A&M are their home and aways. They're at Kentucky, LSU, Mississippi State, South Carolina, Tennessee, Vanderbilt. Home games, I mean, this is a home slate right here. Alabama, Arkansas, Auburn, Florida, Ole Miss, Georgia. So clearly, now that I'm looking at it, I probably didn't give Oklahoma the benefit of the doubt on some of these tough home games because they were the team that was very shockingly low in my I almost said rankings, not rankings. Pick them.
See, that's funny because I had Oklahoma at 9-9, tied with Auburn. I must have loved the home Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Loved them at home, I guess, taking care of business. My team, I had one that was egregious. Like throw your computer off a cliff after you see them. Results was Mississippi State for me. I did not get to too many wins for the Bulldogs, and it hurts my heart. As you guys know, they were my Final Four pick 2 years ago that I watched in person. My first bully ball player of the year was Cam Matthews. Forever indebted to Cam Matthews. But man, when I went through these record results, for some reason I did not turn up too well for Hail State.
See, and that's like some of the other teams I think people would expect. I think people will expect to be picked lower, like South Carolina, maybe LSU, maybe Georgia. I think I ended up giving them a few more. Like I think you would not necessarily surprised, but there were more wins there I found. But Oklahoma was the one that I was just like,
do you have their schedule? Do you have their opponents?
Oklahoma?
No, Mississippi State.
Mississippi State. Yeah, I have that. So Mississippi State, they have home, and this is maybe one of your reasons. Home and away, Alabama, Ole Miss, Missouri. So tough, no matter where the game's played for all three of those. Their home games, Arkansas, Auburn, Georgia, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Vanderbilt. So I think of that group, I would say probably 5 of those 6 are tournament teams, potentially. And then their road games, this is probably where, how many did you actually pick them to win on the road?
I'm curious.
Like Florida, Kentucky, Texas, A&M, South Carolina, LSU, in addition to road games at Alabama, Ole Miss, and Missouri.
I might have only picked them to win like one road game. That's probably why.
That may be why the number didn't get as high. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but just like with them, right? It's like, hey, by default, games at the hump. I'm going to give them at least what may be considered upsets on paper. Like, I'm probably going to have to do it just because I've seen it happen time and time again. And we've also talked about, hey, they've won at least 21 games and 8 conference games every single year that Chris Jay has been the head coach. So
he always does it.
They find a way. And so, yeah. But this was, I mean, again, this is something that Sam uses it to be able to, like, whenever they do their season previews, which I would tell you right now, yes, it's a Missouri, site/publication, channel, podcast, but they do some of the best SEC team previews you will find. And so I would definitely recommend rockmnation.com because he does a great job. Like, they cover Missouri, but they know the rest of the SEC. And what they do is they take all of these, submissions that we send in for these pick'ems, and they do kind of a composite. Here's where this team finished for, whatever, like the average, right? And so it's always interesting because, like, when they do their previews, you'll look up and you're like, oh, how did that team get there? But then guess what? You and I are probably not the only ones right now that are sitting here being like, how do we only give that team that many wins? Or, man, I'm kind of surprised that team got to that number. Like, it just, all those things add up. So, yeah.
Yeah, fun exercise. Fun exercise. You can tell. You can just smell the season on the horizon. We got all this news coming out. There's these, back and forth between the fan bases again. You're just hating on our player. You're wishing on an injury, blah, blah, blah. Oh, just give me all that back and forth. We're back. We are so back.
All right. You guys are back, too, in the chat. Remember to leave a super chat if you want to make sure we get to your comment. And Alan said earlier, but before he hopped off, will any SEC team flirt with an undefeated season? I just don't think so this year. I think that's a tough ask this year. I just think there's too many. I think, elite teams at the top. And I don't know what that number winds up being. Does it wind up being 3? Does it wind up being 5? I don't know. But just got to think it's going to be hard in this league to do it.
Yeah, there's going to be too many, even for the top teams. Like, say, Florida goes on the road and plays at Georgia, a team that's probably projected bottom 5 or 6. Spread is going to be a basket. Like,
we saw how that went last year. It's like
exactly.
You were going to have some of those games where you look up and like, how's that team down 26 points? And, it's going to happen. It's going to happen with the nature of the conference. So, all right. Let's get to our non-conference game of the week. Remember, guys, leave your super chats, your comments, any questions you have for us. We're going to be doing a special mailbag this week, too. We got a lot of questions on Twitter that we're going to get to. So if you want to jump in for members, we'll be doing that this week. And I'm actually going to drop the link in real quick. If you want to join the membership tier, do that because this is around the time where we start cranking up our members-only content for the season. So a lot of fun stuff for our members. You also get some special discount codes on some merch. Speaking of merch, don't forget we have the merch store. If you want to jump in on the action real quickly, let me plug that before we get into this. All of our stuff, merch.
There you go.
Selling,
don't you got one on too?
Fast, huh?
Don't you have one on your head?
I got double here, man. I got the trucker hat. I got this one. So yeah, you can get all of our merch over there. I'm gonna put the link in the description here. But yeah, we appreciate you guys. We got everybody already kind of sending in some stuff, showing the merch they've got.
The crew necks are great too. It's like a big logo. Looks great. Yeah. My dad hasn't taken it off since it's come in the mail.
Nice. All right, so check out the merch. All right, speaking of merch, it absolutely has nothing to do with this next topic.
I was gonna say, what?
Missouri, Kansas. Here we
go. Here we
All right,
go.
Max, we're finally getting into the December games here, right?
So, yep.
The game's 3 months away. We don't care. We'll talk about this. We were talking about this game 6 months ago. Missouri and Kansas. So we just talked about the Tigers, and I think, once again, led by Mark Mitchell, we expect Ant Robinson, who I feel like every time I put out a list of stats last year, he was in the top 10, like the majority of the year in multiple things in terms of like efficiency and all this other stuff that was there. You mentioned Matt comes over. I think we're kind of fascinated by what Sean Phillips can be for this team. And then Trent Pierce, you want to talk about a guy that, we see the development and all that of him. And remember, we're only putting the starting 5 on here for Missouri.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's kind of cheating because we can't put 10 guys on the graphic here. But all the other guys that could play a role for them. And then Max, there is Kansas, the Jayhawks. Once again, no surprise, expected to have pretty high expectations there under Bill Self.
Yeah, don't you worry, guys. We'll get into the depth here, especially for a Missouri team that the starting 5 is near impossible to pin down. But this is a Sunday game, same as last year. Last year was also a Sunday. That was at Missouri. If you remember, that was number 1 Kansas coming into town, Blake. Remember that one? Number 1 Kansas coming into Mizzou, and then
I think Missouri fans remember that game. I could be wrong.
14 minutes left. The score's 57-33. It was a bit of a lopsided affair. Free throws were 31-11. Turnovers were 22 for Kansas to 11 for Missouri. Missouri just played their game. Court storm after was a huge like that was the season defining win that kind of completely shook off all the jokes and jabs about the previous season for Missouri. They won that one, and it was like, yep, Tigers are back. This game, Blake, is going to be not played on campus. It is in T-Mobile Center in Kansas City. This was originally a 2020 game, but then it got postponed during COVID. And so this is the makeup game for that 2020 game, and Kansas is the designated home team for what that's worth. But it'll be played at the T-Mobile Center. I kind of don't like that. I wish this game was on campus with just the border war. I mean, come on, it's a classic matchup, but it is going to be T-Mobile Center.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, if it's a road game, Missouri's not getting as many fans in the building, so maybe that's a nice little thing to where get more fans in there, even though it's not a true home road game. That'd probably be nice for the Tigers. I will tell you, from Kansas's perspective, Blue Ribbon, I don't think this is a huge surprise, has Darren Peterson as their newcomer of the year. They have him on their second team, All-American team as well. So that, of course, is a big number one thing to circle if you're just talking matchup, right? Because we said, I mean, if you're looking at maybe under the radar all SEC candidates, I think Ant Robinson is probably on that list. If we're saying look at best case scenario, look at maybe the role he could play on this team, I think he's got to probably be on there somewhere in terms of like your under the radar candidates. So I think immediately for me, Max, I'm looking at that as sort of the starting point here in terms of we kind of know for different teams, like it's just you have a different roster every year. Your playing style is not always the same, but we know some of those main themes for Missouri that have worked pretty well for them to have success over the years. And I think, like Mark Mitchell is going to get all the attention, but to me, it does kind of start with Ant Robinson, especially in a matchup like this, given what, the expectations are for Peterson as being one of the, top young players out there.
Yeah, 31 free throws in this matchup last year for Missouri, like I mentioned. They're going to try to do that same exact thing given this team build. What you're not seeing on the graphic, Jayhawks fans, for the Missouri depth, Jacob Cruz is probably the most notable that's not listed. He's going to be the best outside threat for Missouri. Kind of has that heat check spurt ability. Then they just absolutely loaded up in the front court. 6'11", Javon Porter transfer. They've got the 7'5", 7'5", Trent Burns, redshirt freshman that they're excited about. Luke Northweather, 6'11", played a bit for Oklahoma last year. So tons of action in the front court. Not sure how the minutes are going to shake out. And then in the back court, T.O. Barrett, they're high on in the transfer, Jaden Stone. So like deep team. This is probably going to play 10, 11 guys in this matchup. Missouri fans for the Kansas depth, not quite as much, but they do have some. Most notably, they got Elmarco Jackson back from injury. He was out all year last year with the torn patella tendon. I'm not going to lie, Blake, I might be joining Elmarco soon. My right patella has been a mess lately. However, Paul Mbia, I might have butchered that, but he was a late commit to Kansas, 6'11", just an absolute beast, long wingspan, great rim protection. Bryson Tiller coming off the foot surgery, I believe. And so some high-quality depth for Kansas. Maybe not as many players off the bench, but some really good names, really talented players for Kansas.
Yeah, Jaden Dawson too. Don't forget, coming over from Loyola Chicago, averaged about 14 points per game last
Very
season.
efficient.
Yeah, 30 minute type game, or 30-minute per game player. So I think, again, that's where it will, to me, that's one of the more intriguing things. How does the depth round out for Kansas? Because I think they've got some options there. But I mean, look, it sounds pretty simplistic, but like when you think about having a player like Peterson on the floor, he's 6'5", 6'10" wingspan. I mean, you just don't see that very often when you're talking about a guy that's just going to run the show here. And I think when you look at it, as we said, from Missouri's perspective, we've mentioned like the Dennis Gates teams that have thrived and had success are the ones that obviously can force turnovers. I mean, that's a big part of it. And, to me, sometimes it just comes down to being able to make shots. Like the game can be that easy sometimes.
Yep.
And I think that's where I'm fascinated by the offensive element for Missouri this season. Because as we said, we know things are going to naturally flow a bit through Mark Mitchell, as they should, just based on the type of player that he can be. But I think that's where you want to see beyond that, right? I mean, Ant Robinson is probably going to be relied on to be a guy that needs to score in double figures every game. Because if he doesn't, I think that's where you're looking around and saying, all right, Mac, can he be the guy that when you look at the numbers, obviously, again, he's going to probably have to be someone that's scoring regularly in double figures. And so, I think that's where, and look, we said this is a December game, so we can play a lot more hypotheticals, knowing that we will already have multiple games at our disposal to be able to look at, whereas some of these, let's say most of the games we've previewed so far as our way too early previews, second game of the season, third game of the season, stuff like that. I think we'll have a very good idea of, let's say, if you expect those, Max, to be the top three scorers, then what kind of gap is there after that, right? And I think that's what I'm kind of interested to see by Missouri here as they go up against this Kansas team that, as we said, is going to have a lot of exciting pieces, I think, on this roster.
Yeah, that's one reason why I didn't list off the Bart Torvik projected odds, is because there's going to be so much action before this.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, the preseason odds would be Kansas -2. Bart Torvik has Kansas 76, Missouri 74, but that's going to change a lot because both teams have decent exhibitions. Kansas is going to Louisville to play their exhibition, and Missouri is hosting Kansas State. Those are both on Friday, October 24th, so you'll get a good little look at both teams then. But then before this game, Blake, Missouri has, I believe, two high major non-conference games. So they'll grab Minnesota at home on the 12th. That's a Wednesday. And then the Tuesday right before this game, so this game's on a Sunday, the Tuesday before, they're at Notre Dame. That's Missouri's two big-time non-conference games. Kansas, on the other hand, holy smokes. They've got at North Carolina. They've got against Duke in Madison Square Garden. They've got Notre Dame and Syracuse to open the Players Era tournament, and then the following 2 days finishing the Players Era tournament. And the Tuesday before this game, they're hosting UConn at home right before. So, hey, if you want to talk about a big-time storyline, hey, Kansas, UConn at home, Hurley coming into town, places going wild, huge win. That could play into, the different spots, if there's a letdown spot or whatever into this one. But we'll know a lot more about Kansas than we will about Missouri, given the non-conference strength of schedule. Tough Kansas strength of schedule.
Here's what Bill Self said, and I'm looking at the Blue Ribbon College Basketball Yearbook, their preview. He said this, here's the quote: "Is it a perfect roster? No. But I don't know if we've ever had a perfect roster. We've got size, we've got depth now, we've got more shooting, we have more athleticism, and we're big. So we looked at what we were deficient at in the past and corrected that. Last year when we were at our very best, we showed we could play with anybody. The problem was we had to be at our very best to do that. There was no margin for error. I think we did learn some lessons from that the last 2 years." So, it kind of tells you, it's coach speak. I get it, but I think that's all we can go on in terms of matchup wise right now. And I think this is a pretty fascinating roster, I think, that he's put together. And of course, it's going to be that when you have someone like Peterson there.
Yeah.
But I think for us, obviously, as we talk more about the SEC, I just think, yeah, it's knowing kind of what Missouri could look like 1 month into the season and feeling like we have a pretty good grasp at that point of who is going to be a big-time contributor for this team outside of the obvious ones. And maybe, all right, we look up and, we did this multiple times last year with a couple guys where we're like, he played 5 minutes, he played 17 minutes, then he played 2 minutes. And it's just like, kind of that balancing act of trying to figure out before you get to conference play, what's your best rotation going to look like? And again, this is what coaches do, right? They use that in non-conference to figure out who's going to be the key guys. And this is the kind of game. We may not learn it from some of those games where Missouri is a 28-point favorite against somebody. These are the kind of games where it separates, truth from fiction here, right? And so we'll know, I think, who the dudes are from Missouri coming out of a game like this.
Yeah, I think that Kansas having that really tough non-conference is so important because last year, Blake, they were number 1 in the country in D1 experience. Mm-hmm. They're only returning a little bit under, I think it's like 8.5, 8.6% of minutes. Yep. So if this game was like second week of the country, that's a major talking point. But since they're going to have all these tests before, I don't think that's as much of a storyline. But this was a fun little stat I dug up when I was researching this. So Kansas's free throw rate last year was 24.4%. That ranked like bottom 10 in the country. That was the worst free throw rate of Bill Self's entire career. Missouri, their free throw rate was 47%, second in the country, the best of Dennis Gates' entire career. So that game last year was played on a Kansas team that had the worst free throw rate Bill Self has ever had against the best Dennis Gates has ever had. Expect that Kansas free throw rate to go up quite a bit. And Blake, I like what you said about the versatility for Kansas. Dickinson is pretty one-dimensional in what he can do. Badunga, a lot more versatile, and Baye off the bench, a lot more versatile. The analytics are projecting 5th ranked defense. Last year they finished 11th. So, I mean, it's hard to predict a jump up from 11, and that's what the analytics are saying about Kansas. This should be one of the best defenses in the country.
All right. So there is our early look. I know quickly here before we wrap up, Sean asked, could they move Jacob Cruz to the starting lineup come that time?
Certainly.
Absolutely. Cruz, he didn't start last year. He didn't start in any game last year. But we mentioned, like, his minutes went up once they got to SEC play. And, he became someone that, like we said, he was probably jumping between that 12 and 19-ish type minute mark or something like that. So I think if you're just doing the natural progression and looking at the roster, I think he's one that we probably got circled as one of the more
definitely
minutes-wise. What does that look like for him? So, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. There we have it, Max. Our way too early preview for the week, Missouri and Kansas. I'd love to tell you we've decided on what the game will be for next week, but we haven't. And so the mystery, the suspense is there for next week's live stream. But as we said, guys, I know we've kind of been on a regular pattern of doing this one live show a week type deal for the past little while because it was the summer. But guess what? The action has picked up. As we said, we've got several coach interviews coming. We've got some more videos in the works. If you want to be part of the membership, it just means more here at Southeastern 16. $3.99 a month. You get bonus content, basketball, football, baseball, and we will have some more bonus stuff coming for our basketball members there. And so, yes, SEC basketball mailbag coming this week for members. We got lots of questions that have already been asked. We'll take your questions in there potentially as well if we do that live. So be sure to support the channel. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, turn on your notifications so you know when we go live for anything basketball. And, of course, for football, we'll have everything covered in what is a huge week in SEC football here at the channel. So, again, we appreciate you guys watching as always. Interviews coming up soon. Chris Beard, Chris Jans, Justin Gainey. We got all kinds of stuff coming here at the channel in terms of interviews. Thanks, guys. We appreciate you watching as always. We'll talk to you again here soon at Southeastern 16 presented by FanDuel.